There was a really interesting video that a guy named Matt Orfalia, who puts together these really funny videos, he puts together these montages of media reactions to things. And what he shows is that, you can have like 20 different media outlets and they all use the exact same words. And when he clips it together, you can see that they're reading from somebody's talking points and it's not really clear who. And basically, if you look at his video here on who blew up Nord Stream pipeline, you see that there was like a party line from the mainstream media on this stuff.
Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that?
I promise you we'll be able to do it.
Someone blew up Russia's Nord Stream pipeline.
I mean, we'd have to conclude without the evidence that it's most likely
Russian sabotage on its own infrastructure.
The common sense matter.
I think it's Putin's way of sending a message.
What Putin is saying to us by blowing up his pipeline is, look, I can blow up a pipeline.
Everyone knows that Putin did this himself.
Who are these talking heads?
A smoking gun without the direct proof.
Yeah, I think logic and common sense will tell you that
without the evidence,
Russia was behind the incident.
We can say it for sure.
Who sabotaged the Nord Stream 2 pipeline?
All right, enough. This is nonsense.
Come on, that's hysterical.
This is, it's these talking heads who have no firsthand experience and they're more than willing to comment on this stuff.
Hysterical.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
All his videos are like that, where he has one on the Hunter Biden laptop as well, where again, he's got like 20 different talking heads and media outlets all portraying it in exactly the same language. And it just makes you realize that there's a narrative.
For the Sunday morning shows, you hear the same narrative from each side. How does that actually get coordinated? Each side builds those bullet points, emails their, what do they call them, surrogates. They email all the surrogates and say, just keep saying these things over and over again to codify.
Yeah, it's a WhatsApp group.
It's a WhatsApp group, and they're just like, say this over and over again. How does it work, Sachs?
I think it's partly talking points memos that go out to chat groups. I think it's also just people looking on Twitter. And then there's like certain key nodes that they follow and they know, okay, this is the party line because such and such key person is saying it, and they take their cues.
It's that mimetic effect that you guys always talk about. People copying each mimetic. Yeah, the mimetic.
Yeah, the thing to understand is that all of the prestige outlets repeat the same party line and have the same perspective.
Yeah. You got to do your own search for information.
This is the beauty of Substack, actually. This is why Substack is so important, is it actually gives you an alternative.
Yeah, it's pretty disruptive.
Gives you an alternative because like you've got 10 different mainstream media networks or newspapers and magazines, but they all have exactly the same talking points, except maybe Fox News is kind of the one exception. Although even Fox on the whole Nord Stream thing, you saw that Fox can be pretty militaristic, and they had the same generals basically blaming the Russians for this on Fox.
Yeah, Germany's position is just, hey, everybody, this is sabotage. So that's it. But who did the sabotage?
I think you asked a really good question there about the German interest in this. Right now, the German economic interest and the German foreign policy interests are not aligned. What's clearly best for the German economy is to have cheap natural gas powering its industries, even if it comes from Russian pipelines. And they no longer have that anymore. In fact, they may never have that again. So they're going to pay a very high price economically, maybe forever. And remember, their whole economy is based on industry. They're a very industrial power. So if this war drags on for a long time, I think Scholz might be in some political trouble precisely because he's gone along with the Americans on this. And there is a growing political opposition to this war inside of Germany.
War fatigue is a real thing, and this thing's got to wrap up at some point. Any final thoughts, Freeberg? I know you didn't get too involved in that conversation, but what is any game theory from you?
No.
Okay, there you have it, folks. Sultan of Science checking in.
What's the problem? You don't want to criticize the establishment?
Voting me, Sachs?
It's very personal with Sachs.
You predicted.
Why don't you have my position on this? Is it because
I'm trying to understand because
I don't think anyone has. I'm not pro-establishment. I think you know that. I think I'm just analytical around the fact that I think there's a strong orientation towards conflict, and I think there still is. I don't think that there's much of an incentive or a motivation to back down because this conflict creates a significant amount of debt owed back to the U.S. It creates a potential future asset stream, creates a realignment of power. Everyone's looking externally as internal, economic conflict and wealth disparity issues arise and economic growth is challenged and inflation is soaring, it's a great place to, address one's energy. So I think all of this stuff is detailed analytical shenanigans around who's saying what or who's doing what. I think the underlying thesis and the underlying river that's flowing is one that's like looking for external conflict. I think the same is true with the US and China. And
You're talking about the military-industrial complex is going to benefit massively from this. The longer this drags out, the more the conflict in Taiwan heats up, the more we're going to invest in our military.
We often talk about these things as if they're like top-down, like master plan driven. And as we all know, like they're more Ouija board driven. It's a bunch of guys that got their hand on the Ouija board and they're all just had a little too much caffeine. And in this case, I think it's just more about like everyone's a little anxious and the anxiety's leading to a desire for more conflict. We're not happy at home. If you're happy at home, you're not looking externally for conflict. That's true in nearly every developed nation on earth today. That's it. I don't know. It's pretty simple.
I like your position.
I think it's a great take. I think it's a great take,
good take.
actually.
Hot take, yeah.
I think there are a lot of interests who benefit from war, and I think the foreign policy establishment is funded by those interests, and it's kind of wired for war, at least in terms of the reflex, right? Even something as relatively harmless as a balloon, that becomes like a casus belli. It's like people are ready to go to war against China over that.
I saw a couple military leaders give a talk a few months ago. It was in a private thing. So it wasn't on public record.
With the establishment?
No, I was at the establishment gathering where the establishment gets
this is the
together.
Illuminati? Did you genuflect twice going in? Because that's the tradition. You do one genuflect on each knee, then they give you the Bank of Capitalism with the Illuminati logo on the side for your fund.
Lapel. Yeah. What was striking to me in this particular thing where these guys were being interviewed on stage at like a dinner thing, and they were so oriented around their next steps in escalation. And I think it speaks to the point, Sachs. Like, none of them were thinking about, like, where are we at today? How do we de-escalate? What is this going to get? There was no conversation at all from anyone about resolution or de-escalation. With every single one of them, it was all about, like, my orientation for getting bigger, going deeper, going harder, going stronger, making this thing bigger. And I think that was really scary to me because I didn't hear anyone having a conversation around, like, should we even consider whether or not this doesn't get bigger? Everyone was thinking assumptively it was going to get bigger.
I like the Ouija board.
You have to follow the financial incentives. When the last time we looked at this, right? Leon Panetta and all these other guys who were screaming for war, they were getting paid by the military-industrial complex. I remember when Lloyd Austin was nominated as defense secretary, he had some conflict issues because he was just on the board of Northrop Grumman or one of these big military-industrial companies. And so, of course, these generals have to push for war because as long as they're girding for war, they're guaranteed to have, for them, a very lucrative job once they leave the military.
The Ouija board, though, Sachs, and I'll throw it to you, maybe you can keep this metaphor going. The media's got their hands on it. They want ratings. You have the energy industrial complex in this German conflict who seeks to benefit massively if people invest in renewables, or you find other, oil, off Norway. Norway's oil is one of the largest reserves that's untapped. So you have this Ouija board, media, energy, and the military-industrial complex all moving it at once. Maybe you can speak to that analogy.
And everyone wants to move it to the side of the Ouija board that says escalate. There are very few people that have the energy to move it to the other side that says de-escalate.
It's not profitable. De-escalation means less energy, less investment. So yeah, you're going to go escalate.
You know who warned us about the military-industrial complex?
Yes.
Dwight D. Eisenhower, Supreme Allied Commander in World War II, wins the war, patriot, war hero, top general, becomes president, Republican president, and his departing address warns us that, yes, we need a defense industry, but they become a vested interest in favor of foreign interventions in war. And where's who's on the other side of it? Where's the interest on the other side of it? I can tell you this, the American people don't want to be in a war with Russia. I don't even think most of the American people want to send $100 billion over there. They want to send $100 billion to their cities to fix crime and all the other problems.
Yeah. Homelessness, everything, yeah. If you've never seen that farewell address from 1961, it is well worth watching. You can find it on YouTube. Just search for Military Industrial Complex Eisenhower, and and this is a person who was part of the military industrial complex saying, watch out for this. It was a very
He knew of
prescient
which he
warning.
spoke.
Yes.